Welcome our next speaker, Dr. Sheetu Singh, who is a pulmonologist of Rajasthan Hospital. She was earlier in SMS Hospital, and she's very academician, and uh, she's editor of Lung Rajasthan and assistant editor of Lung India, and she has published many papers. So, Dr. Sheetu, please tell us your experience about the COVID patients.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. And could you please allow me to share my screen? I'm not able to.
Sure. Sorry. Right.
I hope the slide is visible.
Yes, yes. You're audible as well as visible both. Right.
A very good evening to one and all. I would be speaking on the pulmonary complications and management to recovery after COVID. So what happens after this? The sequel of COVID includes fatigue, body aches, poor exercise capacity, thromboembolism, tachycardia, myocarditis, polyneuropathy, depression, sleep dysfunction, and exacerbation of the underlying comorbids. The pulmonary sequelae to COVID pneumonia include cough, exertional dyspnea, chest congestion, pulmonary fibrosis, and long-term side effects of the drugs that we often use, which includes tocilizumab. Can we take something from the past?
Sure.
So what we have already learned from the past pandemics is that from SARS, almost 36% of the patients recovering from SARS had residual chest X-ray abnormalities. 6 months later, 30% of these persisted, and patients who were more at risk to develop post-SARS fibrosis were older, more likely to have required ICU care. Similarly, if we looked at the MERS pandemic, at 6 weeks, 36% had residual chest X-ray abnormalities. And this is our own experience from swine flu fibrosis. And what we found was that patients who had recovered from swine flu pneumonia had either a static fibrosis or resolving fibrosis. So all these were very promising and optimistic results. Let us see what we had from our patients who recovered from COVID. So this is one of the first patients, 38-year-old male with fever in March 2020. COVID PCR was positive and the patient was kept on lopinavir and ritonavir. So this was from one of the first patients who got admitted in RUHS. Started on oxygen, and despite the supplemental oxygen, the saturation deteriorated. This was the progressive fibrosis that was seen after the COVID. March 2020. And 1 month later, what you can see is the residual parenchymal bands. I will just put on a pointer and you can see these residual fibrosis. Let me share another case. 57-year-old COVID positive, shortness of breath. And what you see here is a lot of ground glass. Along with that, this is traction bronchiectasis and honeycombing. So this progressively increases as we go down in the basis. Case 3. Now this was 38-year-old male and these are the pictures at the outset. And the B panel here shows after the resolution of the ground glass, and this shows honeycombing right at the outset. So this patient was on mechanical ventilator, developed extensive honeycombing post-intubation, treated with high-dose corticosteroids. And then there is problem of overwhelming COVID sepsis in the patients who already have an ILD. So already their lungs are compromised, and despite that, they develop COVID subsequently. So what is the prevalence of this post-COVID fibrosis that I have been speaking about in the past couple of slides? The estimates are around 15% in one group of study, and in another, almost 94% had residual changes. So again, it depends on how you, what you label as fibrosis. So when you look at the timeline, what you see is there are a lot of changes at the outset, and slowly and gradually they decrease, which means that most of this fibrosis is dissolving. So for most discharged patients, 2 weeks after discharge might be the optimal time for early radiological estimation. And more than 40% of the patients demonstrated residual abnormalities, including fibrous stripes, as the main CT manifestation. And this was a paper that came out earlier in mid last year, which showed pulmonary fibrosis secondary to COVID, a call to arms. And here they define patients having severe pneumonia with bacterial superinfection, microvascular damage, and mechanical ventilation as predisposing factors to development of fibrosis. And this is also decided by individual susceptibility, aging, comorbidities, and smoking. So what is the mechanism of pulmonary fibrosis? So two pathways are involved, the TGF-beta and ACE2 pathway. And the risk factors for pulmonary fibrosis are age, elderly. The more severe the disease, more predisposed to fibrosis, more the length of stay in ICU and on ventilator, chances of being smokers, chronic alcoholics, and CT features suggesting irregular interface sign and parenchymal bands. How to identify patients at risk of post-COVID ILD? So, care for patients in ICU HDU, you need to evaluate at 4 to 6 weeks, again with either a telephonic consult or face-to-face. Always consider pulmonary thromboembolism because these patients are in a thrombotic state. After 12 weeks, you evaluate with a chest X-ray, PFTs, consider 6-minute walk test, sputum samplings, and echoes. If normal, you can simply discharge the patient. If, however, abnormal, you can get HRCT or CT pulmonary angio. So at 3 months of follow-up, the bottom line is that you get a chest X-ray, spirometry, 6-minute walk test, and subsequently decide if any of these is deranged, you can get a CT scan done. How to treat? So we really don't know, we don't have a lot of evidence, but what we have been doing so far is steroids, antifibrotic agents such as pirfenidone, nintedanib, N-acetylcysteine, spironolactone, and anticoagulants. So steroids, what we have already learned from the recovery trial, are the only drugs that have shown to improve outcomes in patients with COVID. This may suggest that in follow phase, corticosteroids may have a role also in the recovery phase. However, we still need evidence. About antifibrotics, preliminary results have shown that we can use them, but we still need randomized control trial to prove their efficacy even in post-COVID fibrosis. So the rationale for considering antifibrotic is based on the spectrum of pulmonary fibrotic disease observed in COVID-19, which is similar to idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. In fatal cases of COVID-19, diffuse alveolar damage is the hallmark pathological finding, and pulmonary fibrosis is generally present at autopsy. Pirfenidone and nintedanib are effective in IPF and probably also in post-COVID. So this was the paper that showed that pirfenidone would be having an effect, probably hypothetically, in COVID-19 fibrosis. And the thing that I would like to highlight is pulmonary rehabilitation in these patients. So what is the difference between these two boys? One who is sitting in front of the television eating junk food, and he would not be able to even walk a kilometer. And on the other hand, a boy of the same age is able to climb mountains. The only difference is in their training. And this is the basis of pulmonary rehabilitation in COVID-19. So a 6-week pulmonary rehab improves respiratory function, quality of life, and anxiety. And the interventions include respiratory muscle training, cough exercise, diaphragmatic training, stretching exercise, and home exercise. The points to remember are that telemedicine can help to guide the patients with minimal contact, self-supervised, mild disease can be treated at home, moderate to severe in hospital. So the proposed content for mild disease is patient education, then exercise intensity, psychological intervention, airway clearing exercises, and breathing exercise. So the methods of pulmonary rehab include smoking cessation, clearing of the airways, breathing techniques, exercises, energy conservation, rehabilitation, and patient education. So this is the huff cough technique, which we often ask the patients when they are having difficulty in airway clearance. Sit upright, breathe 3 times, and then bend the arms, which will help in providing extra support when you would be coughing. Raise the elbow and subsequently hold. Then exhale forcefully. And the principle behind is this exhalation helps in clearing the impacted mucus that we often the patients feel when they have a pneumonia. Proning, as I think everyone is very much aware now, in this particular wave, it has been emphasized proning is helpful in better ventilation, better body movements, and clearance of the secretions. So this is the cycle that we generally advise our patients: 30 minutes to 2 hours lying on the belly, then on the right side, then sitting up, then lying on the left side. So following this would help. Take-home message from today's talk is that post-COVID sequelae include fatigue, poor exercise capacity, thromboembolism, myocarditis, polyneuropathy, and sleep dysfunction. Pulmonary sequelae include pulmonary fibrosis. Symptoms include cough, congestion, dyspnea, and the treatment is corticosteroids and antifibrotics. Pulmonary rehabilitation plays a vital role in helping the patient recover from this dreaded disease, which includes nutrition, posture, clearance, breathing exercises, stretching, and patient education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Dr. Shitu. In fact, you reminded, because this lopinavir, ritonavir, you were using the earlier times. And but is it being used nowadays also?
No, so this was almost one of our first cases in RUHS.
Because that I remember that because earlier it was being said that people have genetically engineered some HIV epitope in that, and because of that only lopinavir, ritonavir certainly got out of market at that time. I remember that was in early 2020. But a very nice talk and all these things. Thank you very much for giving time to us. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.